Whenever you go to any museum, regardless of the size, one of the things that you have to realize when you're there is that all museums are limited by the space they have. So whenever you're looking at the collection or the artifacts, there's a good chance that there's a lot more that you're not seeing. Well, right now, I am in Kansas City at the National World War I Museum. I was actually here yesterday and had a chance to go through the museum. It's one of the best museums in the country. And I overheard a guy saying that only 6% of the artifacts that they have here are on display at any given time. Well, we're back. The museum is closed today, but we're gonna have a chance to go in and meet with some of the curators and see what they might have in the other 94% of that collection, and maybe get a look at some things that few people have been able to see here. All right, so we just got into the museum, and the space that I'm in right now is called the Wiley Gallery. So I mentioned that museums can't display everything all at once, so this is kind of like a space where they have rotating exhibits where they'll either self-curate or they'll bring in traveling collections. And they have a new exhibit that's going to be coming in here pretty soon at the time that I'm filming this. And the person who is in charge of all of that, I guess you could say, is Stacy. She works here at the museum and is going to kind of walk us through some of the things behind the scenes here.
So I'm Stacy Peterson, Director of Exhibitions and Registrar here at the National World War I Museum and Memorial in Kansas City, Missouri. And at the end of May here in 2022, we're going to be opening a very exciting exhibition called Black Citizenship in the Age of Jim Crow. The exhibition was originally curated by the Newark Historical Society, but we're including a few objects from our collection in the exhibition as well, and I have two of those pieces here with me today. So the two objects we have here both belong to a African-American soldier by the name of J.W. Muir. He was a bugler as part of the 92nd Division. So we have here his steel helmet that has the 92nd Division insignia painted on it. So we know this was painted on after the armistice was signed because no helmets were painted while the war was going on. We also have here his bugle, which is, as you can see, it's very small compared to where my hands are holding it, and maybe a little beat up, but that is part of the history of the object, and those details are what we like to see.
Okay, so whenever you come to the museum, well, it's not going to look like this, but here's a little bit of behind the scenes on the process of getting one of these displays set up. So they were just telling me that all of these materials came in from the New York Historical Society on a semi, and of course it's all boxed up right now and is going to be unpacked and set up over the next few weeks. And like right here, this is the top of St. Philip's Church, and then here is Confederate monuments in 4 3D models. So anyway, for somebody like me who's kind of into this stuff, it's really interesting to see the process that goes into getting these temporary displays set up. And if you're in the Midwest, well, you don't have to travel to New York. These museums cooperate together so that everybody can learn more. All right, well, we just made our way down into the basement area of the museum. I didn't get down here yesterday, but this is like the public research room. So if you want to come to the museum and access some of the materials that they have, this is where you would come. The museum has over 300,000 items in their collection. So as you can imagine, not all of that can be displayed at once. So we're going to go into another room back here and look at some of the like paper items and photos and some of the rare things that they have down here in their archives.
All right, well, we are looking at here a scrapbook that belonged to a German Army officer named First Lieutenant Franz Baum. And this is exciting because we've never actually had this out before. still in need of processing, so we're going to take a look here. According to the donor, he was actually wounded in Belgium and nursed back to health. And after that, he put together this fantastic scrapbook. You see here, he drew some maps with all these arrows in here of his movements. This map, he also very helpfully dated August of 1914 to December of 1914. And also, he is a bit of an artist. Of course, we have our pictures as well as some more postcards, like mass-produced there. Yeah, here are some images. And please, some of these he drew as well as others appear to be from other folks as well.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it's a really fun collection when we have a mixture of items of photos as well as some written documents and of course our drawings here.
All right, I want to take just a moment and show a few of the things that are in this scrapbook because this thing is absolutely amazing. What we're looking at here, as Tracy was talking about, are some of the drawings that were either done by this soldier or somebody that was in his unit. And if you look at the date there, it says the 16th of August of 1914. So this would have been right there at the beginning of the war. And here are some of the postcards that she mentioned. This one showing some war damage in one of the towns that we would assume he went through. Here's another sketch of something that these soldiers would have seen, and if you look here, we see some photos of the men in his unit. So here you see these German soldiers are marching with sabers. So the way that these guys marched into war was completely different than the way that they were going to march out. This kind of reflects the transitional nature of the First World War. So we're really getting to learn a lot from this guy's scrapbook. Here is some more of the artwork in this piece, and boy, some of it is a little bit dark. And he also has newspaper clippings in here. So here you see an artist rendition of these people being blown into the air from an artillery strike, and then he's got like an artillery piece or a picture of an artillery piece right below it. You can't talk about World War I without talking about the life in the trenches. And here in this illustration, looks like this was done in 1916. Maybe, yeah, we'll say 1916. I can't exactly tell exactly when. But here you can see, like, here's a guy who seems to be on the verge of breaking down mentally. He's got his face buried in his hands. You have this guy who's just kind of sitting with his arms crossed, and then another guy, watching over the trench line. And there are several photos in this album as well that depict life in the trenches. Something else that we have in this album that is extremely valuable is a written record of this soldier's service. Now, this hasn't been translated just yet. As a matter of fact, this is new to everybody. Nobody has ever seen this before. They literally just pulled it out of a box before I came, and they're kind of seeing it, for the first time as well here. But this is just so amazing. Here's an exceptionally sad photo. It looks like maybe an artillery strike or something took out maybe a barn with these horses in it. And our guy Franz Baum took a picture of it to document it. And then if you're wondering what this soldier looked like, well, there he is right there. So take a look at where this guy was at. You can see here from December of 1915 to February of 1916, this soldier served on the Verdun front, which was just an absolute nightmare. And then if we turn the page, Tracy's going to help me out here since I'm kind of preoccupied. Well, here's some more pictures from Verdun. And then his unit got redeployed to the Somme in the summer of 1916. So the horrors that this guy saw with his own eyes and captured with his camera are really just beyond anything that any of us could comprehend. Okay, so what's next for this piece?
Well, next for this one will be processing, and that is what we do to make it ready for being put online as well as properly in storage. But first off, you'll notice that I am not wearing any gloves, and that is because with handling archival objects, it's actually better just to use clean hands, so soap and water, no lotion or anything like that. The gloves, it can just make it too hard to handle the objects and more likely to cause damage. So you'll see no gloves, just clean hands. This one, what I would normally do is I start by numbering them. The number is super important because that's what links the physical object to the paperwork to its location. This one will be easy because it's just the one item. Then after that part, we will go with the scanning. So each page will get scanned. And probably with this scrapbook, because there are so many unique items in it, each individual photo will get cropped down and will get its own record in the online collections database. And that's the step that is actually probably the most exciting, is doing the cataloging. So that's where we record in our database all the important information so we can find this again, so researchers can access it online. So this will be a description of what it is, any appropriate search terms or subjects, things like that. And then that is put onto the online collections database, so it is accessed by researchers all over the world. And then the final step is to store this so we can keep it for as long as possible. So it will have some interleaving acid-free paper put into here to protect the photographs, and then it'll be stored in an archival safe box and put in one of our airtight cabinets.
Well, this next collection that we have from our archival holdings is from a Canadian Expeditionary Force soldier by the name of Clifford Powell Jones. And what we have here is a whole assortment of materials that he had collected and utilized, including a photograph of Mr. Jones himself. What makes this collection really kind of interesting is the types of maps that we see in here. So we have this map, which is actually linen backed, which is really nice because it adds a little bit more, sturdiness and makes it less fragile than some just paper-based maps. But you can kind of see here it says, not to be taken into front lines. And you can see here, which is probably the Canadian side, because you can see the names of the trenches, what they were called. And over here, I would assume potentially might be some German lines because they're not all identified. But you can see that they're trenches because of the squiggle, how they're mapped out and drawn.
Wow. Something cool about this. So right here, if you look, you get the scale. Okay, so this is all in yards. So about my finger width is 50 yards. Look at this. Look at how close this Canadian trench line was to the German trench line. Wow.
We also have, just like our last gentleman, we also have some hand-drawn sketches that are, showcasing the areas and places that they were in.
Wow. So do we know the area where this is from, or is it just...
Unfortunately, we do not know at this point in time where he is from. This is also one of those collections that is unprocessed, which means we've not ordered it, numbered it, processed it yet, which in part of the processing is the deeper dive into the research around each individual piece within the collection from this gentleman.
Awesome. This is so cool. I want this job. This is so much fun. So here are a few other amazing things that Clifford Powell Jones left for us. World War I is where we are going to see aerial combat and aerial reconnaissance for the first time. And these are some reconnaissance photos of the trench lines. And this one especially is really, really good, because you can see, this trench network here. You can see the craters from the artillery barrage that had taken place. And then here is another. These are absolutely phenomenal.
This collection also has a couple of notebooks where they kind of he took notes in terms of, how to be a good soldier and things that you're supposed to do. So we have here, shell hole defense and different position tactics, entrenching tools and their uses, artillery training enlargement diagram.
Wow.
So really this is the study of being an officer, being a soldier.
So much to learn out of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Conventional signs of a platoon. Mapping and scales. All the definitions.
Huh.
So when we look at these collection objects, it's not just the study of, the war and the military tactics of it, but also the study of how those tactics were done, how they were taught, how they were utilized.
All right, well, there you go. Those are just a few of the amazing World War I artifacts that they have right here at the National World War I Museum in Kansas City. If you are ever traveling through here, it's right off of I-70, definitely come to this museum. It is an experience like no other. Like I said, you're only seeing a small fraction of the artifacts, so they're constantly rotating things in and out in their exhibits, and really one of the better museums in the United States, and the only museum in the world that fully interprets World War I. So anyway, as for now, we're heading off to the next place. We are constantly exploring and learning new things on this channel, so if you found value in this video, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell to catch all of the new content when it comes out. And be sure to check the links in the description for more content and opportunities from our partners.